During World War II, before the United States was actively in the conflict, German U-boats were stalking merchant convoys headed to Great Britain from Canada and the United States starting in 1940. Carrying weapons, food, gasoline, and oil, these ships were the lifeline for both Britain and later the Soviet Union under the Lend-Lease Act, and Adolf Hitler wanted British starved out of the war. Several U-boat commanders took great risks to do their duty, sometimes with great effect. Grand Admiral Karl Doenitz unleashed his U-boat commanders, and some decided to take the initiative in a strange way. What drove some U-boat commanders to take the risk of coming deep into enemy shores, even inside the British and U.S. coastlines, risking their subs and crews? What benefit did they derive from such actions? What were the perspectives of these Germans as they watched American nightlife uninterrupted by the war?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former soldier, Marine Corps Scout Sniper, history professor, historian, and book author, and we will answer these questions and other issues on this segment of Forgotten History.
On October 13, 1939, Lieutenant Gunther Preen took his U-47 into the Scottish harbour of Scapa Flow, the home port for the Royal Navy, considered impossible, and sank the British battleship HMS Royal Oak in a mission that stunned the world. Following several weeks of aerial and previous underwater reconnaissance, Rear Admiral Karl Doenitz concluded that there was an 18-yard gap in the northeast entrance between the block ships sunk to bar the gap from Lamb Holm and the mainland. There was still the anti-submarine nest to contend with. Two previous U-boats had tried and failed. Doenitz selected Preen and U-47 for the mission. Preen was his favorite, and according to Doenitz, quote, possessed all the personal qualities and professional abilities required, end quote. After getting snagged, possibly on one of the nets, Preen managed to get loose and spotted what he thought were two battleships, but there was only one, the HMS Royal Oak. The other was the 6,900-ton seaplane tender, HMS Pegasus. Preen began the attack at 0055 hours, just after midnight, and concluded it at 0128. Preen fired 7 torpedoes in 2 salvos, and none from the first had any effect. But the second salvo was enough. Royal Oak rolled over, sank, and 835 of her crew were killed, including Rear Admiral Henry Blagrove. At 0215 hours, U-47 exited the harbor, and in the U-boat's war diary at 0215, Preen wrote, "I still have 5 torpedoes for any merchant targets that come our way," end quote. Preen became an instant national hero, and he and his crew were flown to Berlin to be decorated by Adolf Hitler. Preen with the Knight's Cross for a U-boat commander, and his crew the Iron Cross in both classes as warranted. Preen was a strict commander and not well liked by his crew, and this was well known, but he was highly effective, and that was all that mattered. Preen's success also helped Doenitz in getting Hitler's support to increase the size of the U-boat fleet, and Preen earned the nickname the Bull of Scapa Flow. Preen would earn the Oak Leaves for his 8th war patrol, but he would not return from his 10th and last patrol, where on March 8, 1941, off the west coast of Ireland, U-47 was bracketed by depth charges from HMS Verity and HMS Wolverine. U-47 was blown to the surface and then dived deep, and an underwater explosion was both seen and heard far below. There were no survivors. Hitler refused to announce Preen's demise publicly, so Prime Minister Winston Churchill beat him to it, broadcasting Preen's fate and mocking the Germans in revenge. Preen sailed on 10 war patrols and sank 30 commercial ships of 162,769 tons, 1 warship with a displacement of 30,450 tons, and damaged 8 commercial ships for 62,751 tons, and another warship of 10,196 tons. Reinhard Hardegen was another of Germany's great U-boat commanders. In late December 1941, Hardegen took U-123 into New York Harbor, up the Hudson River, a rather bold move, and he could see the neon lights and signs. He even mentioned that, because it was a dark moonless night and the lights were so bright, he could read a newspaper from the glow of Broadway. He took mental notes of the ships in the harbor and then slipped out, catching the British tanker Coimbra at 6,768 tons that was leaving port. On the night of April 11, 1942, Hardegen torpedoed and sank the SS Gulf America 8,801 tons, just over a mile off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, with 90,000 barrels of fuel oil. After hitting her with a torpedo, Hardegen closed in for the kill with his deck gun. Noting the already large crowds gathering on the beach to watch the spectacle, as well as all the beach houses, Hardegen maneuvered around the tanker and attacked from the land side using his deck gun. Hardegen said, "The lights from the beach houses were all glowing, as if there was no war at all. It was amazing and made sinking ships much easier." End quote. He had a similar experience on the night of April 13th when he sank the U.S. freighter SS Leslie, 2,609 tons, with his last torpedo. Again, the ship was illuminated from the lights on shore. Hardegen finished the war with the Knight's Cross with oak leaves, the U-Boat War Badge with diamonds, and sank 22 ships for 115,656 tons and 5 ships damaged for another 46,500 tons. After the war, Reinhard Hardegen spent more than a year in British captivity before returning home in November 1946. He built up a successful oil trading company and was a representative in the parliament of his hometown of Bremen for 20 years. He died in Bremen on June 9, 2018, at the age of 105. Ernst Heckler was a former Luftwaffe pilot who volunteered for the U-boat service, and he did what was thought to be impossible, as well as suicidal. He entered the most secure port in the Allied world, and on January 8, 1945, he slipped U-870 into the harbor of Gibraltar. Knowing the harbor was full of ships, he blind fired and heard several explosions and confirmed one ship sunk. Just having to pass that British-owned rock made German commanders nervous, either entering or exiting the Mediterranean Sea. 2 days later, as he was leaving, he sank the British steamer Blackheath and was out of torpedoes, so he returned home. He was then assigned to Doenitz's staff as an instructor. Although he only sank 3 ships for 6,462 tons, just getting into and out of Gibraltar warranted the Knight's Cross. He died on October 23, 1965. Hans Werner Krauss managed to creep into the port of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and pick his targets. He stalked the American steamer SS Charles Wilson Peel as it left port, but his torpedoes missed. But sitting offshore, he sank the 4,161-ton Henzada on July 4, 1943, but, alerted to his presence, U-199 was tracked down and sunk by aircraft. The U-199 was sunk off the coast of Brazil on July 31, 1943. Captured, he and his crew were sent as POWs to the United States. Krauss was one of the 25 POWs who escaped from Camp Papago Park, Arizona, during the night of December 23rd and 24th, 1944, but was recaptured. Krauss sank 6 ships for 10,836 tons and earned the Knight's Cross. He died on May 20th, 1990, age 74.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of Forgotten History. Please click like and subscribe for free. And please stay tuned and be engaged and informed. Send us comments if you have questions or even show ideas, and we will respond to all requests and comments as soon as we can. Thank you.